Welcome back, America. We're with Mike Gonzalez, Heritage Foundation Senior Fellow, Daily Signal contributor, his great book, BLM, The Making of a New Marxist Revolution. So, Mike Gonzalez, am I right or wrong? Does this hold the CRT, the DEI, the ESG, the alphabet soup? Does it seem to have exploded onto the scene in the last 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, that's exactly right. So it begins to gain traction with the creation of the Black Lives Matter organizations in 2013, and definitely with Ferguson. People who track what newspapers say tell you that newspapers begin to use these words all the time in 2014, and then you have the Ferguson effect of crime going up wherever BLM has riots. But then it really completely explodes in 2020. Why? Because I think a lot of well-intentioned people had their feelings of righteous indignation manipulated by people, the founders of BLM, who were trained for years, recruited into Marxism, Leninism, and Maoism. They knew exactly what they were doing. The media knows that Eric Mann recruited Patrisse Cullors when she was 17 for the Labor Community and Strategy Center in Los Angeles, and trained her there into Marxism and Leninism for 10 years. They won't say it, and that was many, many years before the creation of BLM. So then, in 2020, with this great tragedy to George Floyd and the riots that we had over 600 riots, people say, well, most of the demonstrations were peaceful. We had about 12,000 demonstrations. A small percentage of 12,000 is a big number. That's over 600 riots. I believe that Congress should investigate this, not just because of the cost involved and the people who died, but we should ask the founders of BLM, what is your intention? What did you just to put them on the record, right? You can be, it's constitutional to espouse communism, but if that is your intention, I think Americans have a right to know. So I think that I agree with you. This really explodes in 2020, but what I see in 2021 is the American people fighting back. So I travel the country extensively in 2021. I go to about 30 cities, and what I'm seeing is concerned Americans. In a way, Gramsci was right. The sturdy institutions of civil society, i.e. average Americans in their American Legion halls, moms and dads and grandparents concerned about their parents, concerned about their places of work, concerned about their nation, they get together and they start saying no. And then we have the political avalanche we have seen since.
Gramsci being an Italian communist. Now,
right.
Let me ask you this. Marxism. When you use Marxism, people, oh, come on now. This is Marxism. The ideology is Marxism. Yeah. It's been Americanized and tailored to the United States.
Exactly.
Is it not? You've studied this very, very carefully.
Yeah, so everything in the manifesto that Marx calls for, whether it's abolishing the family or abolishing the nation state or abolishing capitalism, that's all in the program that they seek to implement right now. It's what it doesn't have is the economic base that Marx had. So you talk to many serious Marxists, and they say, well, this is not Marxism because it doesn't have anything about the economic determinism of everything. The innovation from the 20s to the 60s is to say, it's a couple of things, is to say, well, man is moved by his culture, not just his relationship to the means of production. And number two, the worker is a really bad revolutionary. The worker doesn't want to change America. The factory workers of Michigan and Ohio just wanted, they were very patriotic. So in the 1960s, the New Left and Gramsci and Irving Howe and the rest, and C. Wright Mills say, we need to look for a substitute proletariat. And they moved the locus of revolution from the social class, the working class, to things that are immutable, either race or sex, right? These things cannot change. Newsbreak. And when later you add climate to that, you have what Eric Mann calls a little division of labor that the communists have. David Horowitz is right when he says the issue was never the issue. The issue is the revolution.
And you're right, because the broad middle class, as we call it, in the United States was never going to revolt against itself.
Right.
It's a satisfied middle class. And so they needed to find these fissures, and they have found them. And they are exploiting them. Now, that's not to say they're going to ignore the economy. I mean, they're still working on it as much as they possibly can. But you're right. that's not going to be the basis of the revolution. If they can get race wars and so forth and so on, that's the better, they think. Well, Mike, I really want to thank you. Your book is great, BLM. All your scholarship is great, and I encourage people to check you out at the Heritage Foundation and so forth. Thank you, my friend.
Thank you, Mark.
God bless. We'll be right back.